Hey, we are live from S4 in South Beach in Miami, Florida, and well, I'm not, but Scott is. I'm back at headquarters in Pittsburgh, but Scott is in sunny Miami. Scott, how's it going there?
Pretty good now that it's warmed up. It wasn't so warm here yesterday or the day before, but now the jackets are coming off and we're enjoying the lovely South Beach weather.
But this is the last year it's going to be in Miami.
Yeah, they've decided that they're going to move it on. I'm not sure where. I believe Tampa is the next kind of option, but
Oh,
they're discussing
okay,
this is last year after all these years. Yeah.
okay, but it's not going to like Labrador or something. We're still staying in the Florida sunny weather.
I hope so. I'm not. That's not even confirmed. Dale Peterson, who's the main host of everything, I haven't had a chance to ping him or bug him about it, but I'm sure
Yeah.
he's got everybody doing that to him. But yes, I believe it's moving, staying. We find that out tomorrow. I believe that's the last. Typically do these shows, right? You close it out and say, then we're looking forward to seeing everyone next year at. So I think that's the big unveil tomorrow for location. But it's been pretty clear, probably a worst kept secret, that this is the last year in Miami.
Gotcha. So aside from the location, what are some of the big themes that you're hearing this year at S4? And for those not familiar, it's totally focused on cyber in the OT space, the operational technology, ICS environment space.
Yeah, it's the black hat for OT. So if we're going to kind of put it into a bucket, it's the big conference when it comes to OT cybersecurity. What's unique about it in some ways is you have both the big OEM OT vendors, the Siemens, the Schneider Electrics, the GEs all show up here right next to the Fortinets, the Palo Altos, the more traditional cybersecurity. And there's a kind of an interesting component to what we're seeing is the blending is becoming a little less obvious between the two, right? It used to be a very clear distinction. Here's my cyber companies, here's my PLC and SCADA providers. Not so much anymore. We're seeing a lot of cross-pollination would be the best way to put it. Some of them are collaborative. Hey, I partnered with so-and-so, I brought them in. Now they're part of our collective and ecosystem. And then some are ground up OT only focused, sponsored by some of the big industrial vendors, some tools out there that are specifically designed for use cases in that world. It's something that's kind of a different approach over the last few years, really seen us explode this year much more than in years past. That and then AI is becoming a big conversation everywhere. I think I've had at least double digits, but maybe even triple digits in conversations about AI in the last 2 days. So it's definitely taken a big forefront. And then the other is what maturity looks like, right? Because I think a lot of people are getting to the point where they feel like we've repeated this cycle, had these conversations a lot, and now it's more of the call to action, right? Hey, we've discussed, we've thought about this. Now let's do something. Becomes a little bit more of a theme this year than in years past. I've had a lot of asset owners come in and say, I've got budget for this year. I'm ready to do something. Help me out. Or, hey, what could you do to solve this problem, right? We have this particular need. How would you approach it? So that's a little bit different. And then the collaborative approach is really changing too. There's some IT enterprise vendors, some of the biggest names in the world, who don't traditionally have OT expertise or knowledge and are reaching out to partner with us to start talking through, hey, could you be that extension, right? We can handle the enterprise, we can handle the business side, but we need someone below that 3.5. Can you help us with that? And it's interesting to see how many people are really receptive to that conversation, right? Some really big enterprise services companies, more your traditional IT vendors saying, hey, let's collaborate, right? I think the recognition of that weakness in their portfolio is something that's a little bit new this year, right? In the years past, it was, hey, security is always security. It doesn't matter if it's IT or OT. We'll approach it the same. And that's always been what's been a pitfall for a lot of these organizations. And I think finally there's a lot more recognition to that nuanced difference.
Well, and I mean, that's kind of the idea, like the whole ethos behind S4 is to get more recognition for these issues, to promote them to a point where, the executive leadership and boards are paying better attention to them. So it almost sounds like it's having the effect that was intended, for this conference. And I know you've been years. So, I mean, do you agree? And do you see other changes from previous S4?
Yeah, of the years I've been coming to S4 on and off every few years, pretty good pattern. But the thing that I thought was most interesting for me is the recognition that I have to have an action plan. It's not just the planning or the theoretical anymore. A lot of the things that I think over the last couple of years, we start to see some really big events, incidents occur. And now people don't want to be the next so-and-so, right? That's, I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, but there's a lot of people who come out and say, like, I don't want to be the next X, right? I don't want to be the next guy who has this problem, because they feel that both reputational and revenue damage is too high now. The risk is too high. And then the other one is the impact of cyber insurance premiums, right? I think we're now seeing the maturity of the actuarial models. So now the premiums are doubling and tripling on a lot of people because they're not doing a lot of the blocking and tackling that requires that mitigation. So the way insurance companies rectify that is by raising your premiums, right? They got to offset the risk by a number. And so what we're seeing is people recognizing that, and now they're having to adopt these rather than astronomical cyber premiums. And that's very common about that is, hey, can you help us put a plan together to help lower our premiums because we're getting hammered by cost of cyber insurance now?
For sure. Yeah. Scott, I know you're kind of in the middle of it there, but what are some of the emerging technologies that you're seeing that are of interest?
I think the biggest one is the ones that are starting to collaborate between automated response in some way, shape, or form. Our favorite AI conversation, right? How do we leverage AI as a response mechanism, knowing a lot of the talent is limited within some of these organizations, right? They don't have dedicated people. The more I can leverage AI to do some of that automated process, makes it more valuable, right? I can do more with less. So that's the big one. The second one I see a lot of is, how did my integrations play, right? The tools that are really doing really well is tools that have integrations and become a fabric or a platform for OT security. And there's a couple of really good tools in that space that we're really looking at and seeing how they would play in our greater ecosystem. And then kind of the last one is just some nuanced approaches to specific needs, right? So sometimes it's how do we do treating ladder logic and programming almost like it's a programming development lifecycle versus a configuration, right? So managing it the way I would do secure development lifecycle of the software, treating ladder logic like that, right? Kind of a different shift in the past. And then some of the tools, like I think probably the one that really surprised me the most is Inductive's presentation. Full disclosure, partner, right? So we got to put that out there. But Inductive's approach to using Ignition as a aggregation of other resources was really cool to see that, because I hadn't even thought about it that way. But their presentation really showed that you could kind of put this all together and use Ignition as that central repository for knowledge and development, and even manage a lot of the other components than just like a traditional MES or SCADA solution. It's really surprising how adaptive that presentation was, and that was unique to me.
What are you looking forward to for the rest of the week?
So the big one next is we're going to go see a lot of what the vendors have from a roadmap standpoint, right? I think it's nice what you show me you have today, but what does tomorrow look like, right? Are you solving some of the things we're hearing? Because there's no magic bullets out there. There's not one product where I say, you buy this product, you solve all your problems. Right. But seeing what they're doing, what they're seeing as a future, what they're looking at from a big picture perspective, and is it addressing concerns we're hearing from our customers? So that becomes a big conversation for us, right? Is, if you have on your roadmap things that are almost irrelevant to me, it's really telling, right? It tells me what direction you think. Like the biggest example I can give you is if you claim OT cyber as a product focus of you, but then that's concerning, right? Because OT are distinct, different, infrastructures and different plays and different risks. So it says a lot, right? Because I think there's been a conflation over the years of IoT and OT. While similar, they do have unique differences, and sometimes some of the bigger vendors don't always recognize that or attempt to kind of bucketize them together. And that's a lot of times unveiled in the IoT devices,
Sure.
Smart thermostats and, there's all that stuff. Great, but very different approach than if I'm worried about a PLC or VFD inside of a physical plant, right? Those are different systems, similar OSs, similar approach, but very different risk, very different network architectures, very different connectivity. And so knowing that where you're going tells me what you see as the value to your product and tool set, what you think you should be solving.
The connection glitched a little bit just before you said, like, so what's the red flag that kind of gets thrown up for you on, if you're, an OT vendor, claiming?
So it's really, for when I look at the roadmap and I look at what your future is, and I start to see that you're focusing on IoT type devices versus traditional OT. That's really,
gotcha.
That's really what I'm looking at, right? So when you look at an IoT device, it's very similar, right? It's an embedded operating system. It's a controller a lot of times, but where it is in the network architecture is extremely different, right? It's much more publicly addressable. It's much more communicative. It does a lot of things that aren't native to what we do in the OT world. So if your roadmap is really focusing on those IoT devices, for me, when you look at it from a plant floor perspective, while that covers a subset of my assets, the bulk of my revenue generation, the bulk of my process aren't those, right? So if your focus is away from a minor component to my overall architecture, it highlights a lot of what your tool set future looks like. So what we really want to look for tools that are staying in the lane that we focus on, right? And the term I've heard that really liked is GrayMatter got called, from a cyber perspective, a very skilled boutique cyber skill set, right? We're very specialized, and it's very true, right? I don't know that if they meant it as a compliment, but I'm gonna take it as one. But really, it was the concept that we stay in our lane. We're OT experts, and very much our focus, and that's what our customers expect of us. So that's something that was really interesting. I want to see from my vendors, right? Do they have that same passion for the OT space that we do?
Absolutely. So if you're at S4, find Scott and have a conversation for sure. And also, if you're wondering about his background, trust me, it's Air Gapped. It's our new podcast. Check it out. It's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify, and it's on our website at graymattersystems.com. So Scott, thanks for checking in live from Miami. I appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your visit at S4.